reduce electric rates for Kit Carson's co-op members to the lowest co-op rates in New Mexico. But I'll let Mr. Reyes tell this story. Please welcome Luis A. Reyes Jr.
Thank you very much, Ward. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, 350, for allowing me to share my story tonight. As it's been noted, I've been with the co-op actually since 1984. I started as its electrical engineer, and then in early 93 became the CEO of the co-op and have been in that position ever since. This story basically starts in 2000 when Kit Carson was a member of Plains Electric. Plains was going through some growing problems with having a single power plant at Escalante. And they decided that they had to do something different. So in 2000, a merger between Plains Electric and Tri-State occurred, causing the 13-member co-ops of Plains to merge with the co-ops of Tri-State to create a 44 four-state cooperative. You know, there was promises of lower rates, stable rates, and we went forward. Around 2002, around that time frame, Tri-State altered the contract to allow 5% of renewable energy to be, and at that point, it was just 5% of energy from a different power supplier to be purchased by the co-op. And I think most co-ops were okay with that until about 2006 or 7, when Tri-State decided that they needed to extend the contracts from 2040 to 2050 to build some coal-fired power plants in Holcomb, Kansas. And I think that's really where then the issues start to resonate with our members, and that they really didn't like the whole idea of Kit Carson moving on with a power supplier that really his focus was coal-generated power. And so Kit Carson, as well as Delta Montrose, declined to sign that contract. And in doing that, there was, Tri-State instituted policies that were going to cause Kit Carson and Delta Montrose to actually pay higher rates if we didn't sign the contract. I think the other thing that occurred is that there was a promise of stable rates for at least 10 years. And our rates basically doubled up until 2014. So about every 18 months, we had some kind of rate increase that basically went unchallenged at the boardroom, and actually started to make electricity on the wholesale side unaffordable. And so you couple that with the lack of being able to do renewable resources, increasing rates without any end in sight. And so we started to work with Tri-State's board to see if we could increase that renewable limit from 5 to 7 or 5 to 10, and ask them also to relax on the number of increases that our members were seeing. We did that unsuccessfully. And in 2013, we finally got enough co-ops, Continental Divide, Springer Electric, Hemis Mountain, to protest the rates because they were feeling the same pressures of a poor rate design and increasing rates. And as a result of that, we decided that maybe it's time for Kit Carson to exit. And so during 13 and 14, we had a lot of discussions at our annual meeting, district meetings, consumer advisory meetings, any place that we could meet our members to ask them if they felt us moving forward with a different power supplier, a power supplier that aligned more with our values of renewable energy and affordable pricing. And so in essence, the board got its marching orders that the status quo was not any good for Kit Carson anymore. And so we worked with Tri-State's board and staff to get an exit. We negotiated the exit fee, which I think has been well documented, a $37 million exit fee. And then Kit Carson went out to RFP to look for a power supplier that more aligned with Kit Carson's members' views. I think a lot of times people in the industry focus on the board, but the co-op belongs to the members, and it's incumbent upon the board, and the CEO, managers, to listen to what the members want, and then figure out that's the direction we need to get to. And so with that, in July of 2016, July 1st, we exited Tri-State, and we started our relationship with Guzman. We traded in a 2040 contract to a 2026 contract. So we were coming up to the end of that contract. We went from a contract that had 5% renewable to basically a contract that had no limits. And we went from a contract where with Tri-State, you didn't really know what the price of power was going to be the very next year, to a contract where I know the price of power every single year. And for the next 3 years, the price is going to be fixed. So we also brought certainty to the ratepayer that at least on the power supply side, the cost of power was known, measurable, and going to be low. The next thing we did is we actually invited Guzman to the community, and we had a week-long days of meetings where Guzman met with every consumer group, environmental group, Native Americans, elected officials, to determine what do we want in this contract that was kind of left out. And it came out that the 100% daytime goal was one thing that Kit Carson needed to embark, and Guzman embraced that. We then had a lot of help from my good friends at Renewable House, a really invaluable advocacy group that did a lot of footwork for us. They assisted us in going out and talking to members, elected officials, getting resolutions. And in a very short time, we had what I would say as much member support to go 100% renewable as anyone could imagine. We then worked with them to start building our fleet. And if you and I think the other thing that's important to recognize is the $37 million needed to be paid back. The $37 million was not an extra fee. It was something that we would have paid to Tri-State over time. And I think a couple of things that were mischaracterized that was extra. It was basically our percentage of debt, which we negotiated from a higher number down to 37. So I liken it to refinancing a home that you have a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year. You still have the same overall payment. You just pay it faster and you pay less interest. And then you have more financial freedom after it's paid to do what you want. And that's exactly where Kit Carson was. So we decided that this 37 was going to be paid over 6 years. We knew in year 7 what the price of power was going to be. So it was going to be lower. And we moved forward. I saw a message there, Tom. Is there something going on?
That's
Okay.
perfect.
I'm sorry. So the other things that actually obstacles where we're so proud of our accomplishments in 2014, we had lost 20% of our load. And so we were already in the midst of moving forward with an exit, and we lost our biggest load, a mine, and about 350 employees. And I think as everyone's seen, COVID turned the world upside down, and actually then caused more pressure because we had a lot of our larger businesses, generally schools, ski areas, really not operating at full blast, but we still had to pay our obligation. So while we're doing this concurrently and paying off the exit, we built our fleet. We also built our fleet in partnerships. So the town of Taos and the village of Eagle Nest, the village of Angel Fire, Picaris Pueblo, all are partners with Kit Carson, in which we have sited solar facilities on properties we rent with them. So this became basically a community effort, and Kit Carson built or is building a distributed energy resource network in which we have distributed around our system solar facilities that basically every community has. And that was the other thing we heard loud and clear. Our members wanted renewable energy, and they wanted it in their backyard. So we did give up, some pricing on economies of scale, but we got exactly what the members want, was more control over their power supply. And so as we move forward, we try to figure out how do we do our final kind of push to get to this 100% daytime. We built 2 projects, Taos Mesa and Angel Fire. These were both solar facilities with battery storage. And so Kit Carson now has Tesla Megapacks that we can start using for resilience, reliability, and just to sell energy, store energy during the daytime and release it at nighttime. And so today, Kit Carson sits about 41 megawatts of solar, about 17 megawatts of storage. And I think the other thing that's occurred is what we always knew, and I think what people in at least the solar industry knows, is that it's reliable. There was talks when we left that, and when we went with Guzman, that it's going to be unreliable. You're going to have price spikes. Solar's intermittent. All the excuses you generally hear from the industry, which basically I think we've proved them wrong. We've had no system outages tied to power supply. It's as reliable as any power source that is being generated in New Mexico. Our prices are actually dropping, and I'll get to that in a minute. And so because of that, we are continuing to build. So we're now on 2 other projects with 2 other partners. We're repowering our very first array that we built, a 1.5 megawatt in Amalia, New Mexico, to a 10 megawatt with about 7.5 megawatts of storage. And we've entered into an MOU with Taos Pueblo to again build another 10 megawatts with another 7.5 megawatts of storage. So it continues, our community continues to 6 years later be excited about being able to build more renewable resources. The PPAs we signed with Picaris and Taos Pueblo help their tribal members, whether it's to help on their power bills or help with affordable housing. What we've seen is this solar fleet, this idea of giving the co-op back to its members and having the members control have really bared a lot of fruit, because now our membership is getting innovative. How to use solar for other than just producing electricity. Can we use it for resilience? Can we use it for gaining monies for affordable housing and those type of projects that are badly needed in north central New Mexico? So we hit that goal in July and August after testing of the 100% daytime solar. In July 1st of this year, we also made our last payment to Guzman. So we completed the $37 million Guzman payment that was paid from Guzman to Tri-State. And right off the top, the very first month, we saw bills decrease. And we average about 470 kilowatt hours a month per residential. I dropped 34%. So if you had a bill at $88 last year at this time, today it's $58. I think that's especially important in today's times, as energy prices, gas prices, natural gas prices continue to increase, food prices continue to increase. Just about everything that we need today increases. And Kit Carson, with the help of the membership, or the guidance of the membership, with the help of Renewable Taos and other folks, have been able to, in essence, have some of the lowest rates. There's probably two to three co-ops in the eastern part of the state that probably have lower rates, kind of the co-ops in the oil and gas in the Permian Basin. But in the existing tri-state network, Kit Carson does have the lowest residential rates. And since our rates are fixed, I expect that we'll have those rates for 3 to 4 years in the future. I think the other thing that is really important is the work that we did with the state of New Mexico. We met with Governor Grisham's staff to see if there's ways to first make sure that there was no legislation that harmed Kit Carson's kind of journey to energy independence and lower rates. We work with the Cabinet Secretary Probst on the energy side to look at different programs, and as we move forward to be able to create microgrids, and how do we better use battery and solar technology together so that we could build a more resilient network. And so we also got a lot of support from her staff, the governor's staff, to make this a success. So at the end of the day, and now we're starting the second phase of our energy transition, and that's what do we do for those cloudy days and snowy days and nighttime. And we're working with that. We've assembled a good team of consultants. Guzman is, again, we're reworking our contract so that we can be enabled to do that. I think that's one of the benefits that a Guzman brings to the table, is they're not so stringent on their contract requirements. And as the world evolves, as the energy world transitions to more renewables, Guzman has been in a better position than our previous power suppliers, really to adapt and adopt those changes under the basic premise that we're here for the membership. And we're here to make sure we serve the members' needs, that we continue to offer reliable service, and that we continue to make it affordable for our members. And so I think if co-op boards across the country, I think, in my opinion, a lot of boards have forgotten that. And it's been more about the contract they have with their power supplier. I think we have proved, and I think other co-ops are starting to see that you can change the contract, you can change the terms, you can move forward with a more environmentally friendly portfolio and still have lower rates and still have reliability. So as we move forward into our next phase, I think the challenges are going to be just as tough. What fuel supply do we use? Batteries now are still a little too expensive to deploy as what I would consider base load or dispatchable power. The drought has put some limitations on the hydropower. So I think, though, the co-ops have always been innovative groups. And so we are working with our consultants, working with the market, working with the governor's staff to try to determine what is the best fit for at least Kit Carson moving forward when it comes to the next phase and what I would call nighttime power. Our new goal is to be a 100% renewable day and night by 2030. And we're already started on that venture. And in the interest of time, I want to leave some time for any questions or comments or any issues people may want to raise. But that I do appreciate you staying with me and allowing me to share Kit Carson's story. It's real. It's something that can be done. Kit Carson has 30,000 members, so by no means is it a small co-op. We serve in 3 counties. We serve in north central New Mexico, so it's not the easiest place to serve. And like most places in New Mexico, we do not have a wealthy community. So everything we do on behalf of the members or with the members is to make sure that those low income, those most in need, now and in the future, can afford electricity. And so with that, Tom, I turn over if there's any questions or comments. Be happy to entertain those at this time.
Thank you, Luis. There are two questions in the chat. First one I think is pretty quick from Andrew Stone. Do you have time of use metering, and what in fact is the residential price per kilowatt hour?
We do have time of use metering. I don't know the cost, but I think that's really going to be the second phase of this whole transition, right? And just imagine, Andrew, that with all the solar we have, we could actually have a time of use rate just linked to solar. And then one for EVs. I think what we're doing gives us an opportunity to really change the conventional rate design to something that more fits our community and our portfolio. And so we've been talking to RMI. We've been talking to different groups to see what kind of new rate design do we need to have to go into the future that really enables also members to participate. So just imagine a world in which I have solar in my house, and Tom's my neighbor, and I want to sell my energy to Tom because I'm going to be on vacation. So we do a transaction, and Kit Carson just does the wheeling. We're a distributed system operator. So we enable now more people to put more resources. Same thing with batteries. I'm a big believer that coupled with community solar, we should have community storage. And then around that, we can start dictating what kind of rate design is best to use based on the types of resources we have.
Maybe just to clarify the question, so the average customer for Kit Carson, what is their electric rate per kilowatt hour?
It's about 13 cents after the exit's been paid.
Okay, thank you. Got a second question from Karen asking if in fact Kit Carson is no longer a member of the New Mexico Rural Electric Co-op Association, and have other state co-ops expressed interest in doing what you've done, following in your steps.
So on the first one, we left the statewide association in I believe it's 2018. Again, I think they're a good organization, but they just didn't. Their values and their view of a new energy world didn't line up with ours, and so we thought it was best that we separate, part ways. So again, so we wouldn't be kind of subservient to an organization like the statewide, that we allowed our members to drive our policy when it came to legislative and regulatory policy. We haven't missed a beat. I mean, we've hired our own lobbying team. It puts our board in a much better position because they have to carry a lot of the load now. Instead of, let's say, the statewide association doing all the lobbying, our board has to be very active. So these moves, in my opinion, have made our board more well-rounded, our staff, because under the old model, we really just had to take care of the distribution issues. The power takes care of the power supply, and we have a board member that goes there. They take care of the transmission. So we don't really worry about that. Same thing with the lobbying at the PRC and the legislature. Since we have to do that ourselves, it really has made our board more focused on member issues and made them more engaged with elected officials and policymakers. So I think this move has actually made the co-op a better co-op in a thoughtful way, and also respecting the wishes of the members collectively.
Thank you. Another question popped up from Barbara. Could you discuss more about what fuels you use now for nighttime power?
So right now, we still get our nighttime power from Guzman, and most of it is probably coming either from San Juan, Four Corners, or gas units up in the Farmington area. That's what's available to us. Kit Carson is a little bit concerned about this transition fuel as you close down the coal plants. And we have these targets. What do we use? So there's always going to be a trend. There's always going to be a use, in my opinion, of some fossil fuel until we get to that carbon-free resource. Whether it's a long duration battery, whether it's a hydrogen fuel cell from green, from water, whatever it is. And I think the other difference with co-ops in general is we have an obligation to serve. So we can look at all the technologies, but at the end of the day, we have to serve people electricity. And so we're going to make some decisions that may not be popular initially to get to that carbon-free kind of end zone. But today the balance is probably coming from four corners.
Thank you. And you answered the second part of Barbara's question. The third part was, how can we get more information to the general public on your story and its lessons for other power companies?
Well, I think this is one thing. We like to tell our story. I mean, we think it's something that other co-ops should be doing, if not in full, in partial. The cost of solar has really come down. It's the cheapest resource out there. Cost of wind is cheap. So if co-ops are concerned about their members and the price of power, they should be looking at this model. Batteries are coming around. So I think, our website, but we'd be happy to share our story. I think the other thing that I missed is our solar facilities and our batteries, our broadband that you mentioned, our high speed, has put us in a position to have a very modern grid that we can see in real time. We can talk to our members basically back and forth today in real time, but it was all built by New Mexicans. And so when you look at the whole value stream that this brought, during our broadband, we had close to 500 local people working on it. Every single solar array we built, it was 2 local contractors from Taos that we put together to form a third company to build our solar facilities. So besides us getting cheap power, clean power, it was built by locals who now build other arrays in other parts of the state and country. So when you look at the economic development benefits and building skill sets for New Mexicans, this model did it. And I think you can do that in any community. So I do think, they just need to contact us and we'd be happy to put out information, visit with groups, small or large. Last week I visited with a group of 5 people that just want to know the same thing. And that's how we build or continue this momentum towards energy transition. And I think more important is giving the co-op back to its members, giving the actually living what we speak is listening to our members and giving them that voice and then carrying it out. I think boards have to carry out those wishes of the members. And that's why the co-ops are set up, is because no one was listening to the rural people in the 30s. And so REA was formed. Let's not make those same mistakes as we get into this pretty exciting time in the energy world.
Thanks. And I note that Steffi posted in the chat a link to a story in the Durango Herald about La Plata Electric settling with Tri-State and trying to buy down its contract following your footsteps. So for the questioner, that might be a good source for a story to share. And I see that Jim McKenzie has his hand up.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll recognize Jim after you're finished, Luis.
Well, what I want to say is there are a lot of co-ops not looking at this option, some in full, some partially. Some are seeing the benefits of having shorter term contracts, gives you more flexibility. So Kit Carson, although we may have started it, it's not unique anymore. There's probably half a dozen current tri-state co-ops looking at its power supply options. I do think as a CEO that every board has an obligation to always look for the best deal for its members. And that doesn't mean that they have to change, but I do think they have an obligation to take care of their members and see if there is a better deal out there. And I see a lot of times that that's not happening. And so I do think, again, some of these co-ops are missing a lot of opportunities. Tom, at the end, they may find that the deal they have today is the best deal for their members, right? Their demographics may be different than Kit Carson's, the area of the state, the economic base, but you don't know until you try it. And I think that's what's lacking today in New Mexico is kind of the will to make sure they have the best deal for their membership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Luis, I've got a follow-up on a thread that you've been talking about. I think one of the exciting aspects of this story is the community aspect. How involved the community has and is, how the board is in touch with the community. And one of the reasons that this impresses me, because I was a commercial customer of Central New Mexico Co-op. And it seemed, I wasn't really involved in the co-op there, but from what I could gather, the board represented, the largest electrical users on their system. That was Torrance and Valencia County, I guess. And it didn't feel, from where I was sitting, that the spirit of the co-op was really there. So I guess my question is, and you addressed this a little bit, is Taos, I know Taos is special. I've spent a lot of time in Taos. But is it unique? Are you seeing your experiment, if you will, being replicated? And how does that fall in with this very strong community feeling that Taos has?
Jim, I think the first thing is our members are pretty active, right? So I think it's unique. I think it's a great place to live, but we're very active. And so if we don't go out to our members on their terms and listen to them, they're going to come to us. And so I think all co-ops have those type of groups. You have to go out to the members where they live and understand first what they want. Personally, I'm from Taos. So, my position is I want to leave Taos better than when I was growing up from an electrical standpoint. And so to me, it's not really kind of a job. It's kind of, how do I really enable our people to get the best out of their electric co-op? And so one thing, every quarter, at minimum every quarter, we have consumer advisory. So I have advisors of members, generally residential, in every district. We go meet with them and we'll have this type of discussion. It may be that we may have had too many, not enough tree trimming, whatever they want to talk about, but we keep them engaged and then we report back. When we got into the solar, we actually formed a committee of about 70 members to tell us, what kind of resource do you want? At the end, it turned out to be solar, but do you want wind, hydro, geothermal, biomass? So they met for about a year. I made sure the board alternated to hear their members. And at the end, they gave a report, a formal report saying, we've analyzed all the benefits, pros and cons, and we think solar is the best resource. Kit Carson, that's what we want you to do. And so, Jim, in this event, you got a cross section of members from all walks of life, from all political parties, from Native Americans to Hispanic to Anglo, and they came to a consensus to build solar. And so now it's easy to build solar in Angel Fire, which is generally very conservative. Just as easy to build it in Taos, which is more a melting pot, and really easy to build it in the north, where you have still Spanish land grants. So the key to talking to your members and not thinking that you know more than they do. What I have found is the members are generally pretty well educated and tuned. but we don't give them a chance to tell us that. And once we opened that door, they really made it successful for us. So I give a lot of credit to the members on both sides, the ones that kind of beat us up and said, hey, why do you want to leave? And the ones that then convinced the other members, this is the best thing to do in the future. So I can't kind of underscore the value of going out and meeting with our members, even if it's contentious, because that's the only way you really get a good dialogue and direction from them, how you make, because I think in general, most people want the co-op to succeed and most people want it to do well. And so you don't know that unless you talk to them, unless you ask.
Thank you.
Excellent. Another question, this one from Michael. How has Kit Carson expanded energy efficiency offerings to customers, and did this change after exiting Tri-State?
So we really don't have a good energy efficiency program. To be honest, we tried in a rate case to do that 1% fund, to have a fund to do energy efficiency. And when we have energy auditors and we do that type of stuff, like most poor communities, a lot of people don't own their own homes. So there's not really, they live in trailers, they live maybe in a hand down from their parents. And so that's an area that we really have to focus on. We haven't done a good job. But that's kind of this next transition is if I really want to right size their bill, then I need to make sure their home is efficient, whether they're using electricity or gas. So again, with everything on our plate, we just haven't done a good job there. And that's one thing we do have to focus, because we don't see the economic climate in northern New Mexico changing. We still see people struggling to make ends meet, a lot of two-home incomes. And I'm trying to really lower that energy burden initially with lower cost of power. And then the second phase would be with energy efficiency, but we're not there yet.
Thanks. Another kind of a couple of questions, both related to the new climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act. And how do you think the IRA will affect co-ops to make a similar transition? And also, are there any other provisions of the IRA to purchase maybe more batteries and renewables, or help members electrify their homes, or EV chargers from the IRA? So maybe you could cover, the impact of this new climate law on
so for someone like Kit Carson, I think for most co-ops, but maybe more relevant to a tri-state, I think it's great. I think getting direct payment in lieu of trying to get tax credits or create subsidiaries or LLCs, I think it's fantastic. It puts Kit Carson in a position really to go after that, to maybe build our next phase of generation. Maybe it is more storage. There is monies there for upgrades. So I think it's something that the co-ops really have to hit hard. Kit Carson has already retained a consultant to start breaking the IRA down to point us in the direction. Specifically, these are the programs that will work for Kit Carson based on its track. I would presume the other co-ops are doing the same thing. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity really to get more low-cost renewables on the system, create resilience. Tom, one thing I didn't talk about, but I think most of it has seen it, the extreme weather. And so our systems really weren't built, at least Kit Carson's, for 100-mile-an-hour winds. And so I think in the IRA and some other DOE programs out there, there is going to be a lot of money flowing. Sometimes I think there's just too many programs to try to keep your eye on. But I think it really can put all the rural areas, all the rural co-ops in a good position to build their fleet, harden their network, build resilience. I think co-ops should be looking at storage. We see storage as an invaluable tool for everything we've mentioned before. And I think broadband. I think if you're really going to make a grid work, Tom, you're going to need visibility 24/7, and you're going to need all your devices connected to the member. And so you can have all this, but if you have no way to communicate, then you can't operate it. And so I do think foundationally, co-ops should be looking at some communication network that enables this intelligent grid so we can operate, be smart about how we operate our batteries and storage. So I think it's a fantastic tool. You know, we just got awarded 8 EVs from the state of New Mexico. So I want to thank the state of New Mexico DOT, 8 fast chargers. So when Kit Carson finishes putting those probably early spring, we'll have 50 EV chargers in our network. And we're proud of that because we're starting to get the word out that electrifying our transportation is also key, and working with the membership of how do we enable again the low income access to that. Is it through public transportation? Is it bringing people in and buying the kind of the used EVs? Is it the town and county starting to get their fleets and the school buses becoming electrified? And so we have a whole discussion now with about 45 key players in our territory about how do we electrify our transportation, make sure the grid can handle it, and then have the power supply, which is solar, to power, to charge the cars. Because we truly want a carbon-free solution. We don't want to have you charge EV with coal fire generation. And so, yeah, I think those programs, but the IRA I think is a fantastic tool. Ask me in a month when I have more information or the specific programs, but we're going to aggressively go after that to build our fleet, to continue to build our fleet.
Great. Does Kit Carson offer rebates for electrification and energy efficiency investments?
Right now we don't. And I think the other thing that we've done, like I said, is, getting RMI and other folks helping us with our rate design and our programs is Renewable Taos. We're working with them to educate ourselves, heat pumps. How do those work? How do we get people to get a heat pump to heat and cool their home? So they're sponsoring a series of seminars for our membership, which Kit Carson is going to help support. I think the key to some of these questions you ask is getting more, Kit Carson being a little bit more proactive in getting some member education on these programs. Again, our focus so far has been on kind of the big ticket items. I think in this next transition, we're going to be looking at these issues like electrification, rebates, converting propane homes to electric. How do we get the building codes changed to make sure that you have a 200 amp service so you can have a heat pump and an EV charger at the house. Right now, one of the prohibitions is a lot of homes have small services, and so the cost to upgrade them is prohibitive, by some. So we're looking at everything, but it's co-ops generally have small staff, so we kind of pick what we're going to do, and that just wasn't one of the issues we're going to do today.
Sure, of course. There's one just about the name Kit Carson. If any member suggested getting rid of the name Kit Carson for something different and maybe better, less with that less historical baggage.
Yeah, and I've been there 38 years. I've been asked once. So,
but is this the once?
No. Probably a couple of years after I started as CEO. Yeah, we really haven't been asked. We don't push it. We understand the sensitivity of that, of the name. But when you go to Taos, there's a lot of places. We have. There was a discussion a few years ago about changing the name of Kit Carson Park. About 10 years ago, and it went back and forth, and it's still Kit Carson Park. So it becomes contentious, but nothing ever happens. Be honest, Tom. We're focusing on these things that really help people, help the climate, keep rates down.
Sure.
Just don't call me late to dinner, but anything else, to be honest, I really don't dwell on that. I think our members would rather see a lower rate and have me put my energy in making it better for them than put a lot of energy in in changing the name at this point. That may change, but today it hasn't been an issue at all.
Sure, absolutely. We've got, let's see, I see Jim has his hand up, and I'm just wondering if Ward is another member of a co-op for the Socorro Electric Co-op. If you want to join the conversation, Ward, if you had anything to say from your perspective as another member of a rural co-op. So feel free to chime in, but Jim.
Yeah, I just have I think this is going very well. We probably have an attention span for maybe another 10 or 15 minutes, but I wanted to remind people of our initial request was if you could put in the chat where you live, maybe if you're on a co-op, what co-op you're on. And the third thing is how you heard about tonight. This was very successful in getting the word out, so we want to be able to replicate this in the future. That's all I had.
Great, thank you, Jim. Ward, are you there? You want to say anything?
Yeah, we're up here at Free Colorado Visitor Center, so our internet connection is a little unstable. Yeah, what Luis says, I wish our board would pay attention, because what he's saying is absolutely relevant to what's going on today. And I got elected to try to change our co-op to go more renewable, because I know it's going to save the co-op money and it's co-op members' money, but it's really, really hard to get that board to change and pivot and really listen to what's going on today. And I think this Infrastructure or Inflation Reduction Act will provide a lot of impetus to actually for our board to go ahead and move forward on renewable energy. I'm really hopeful that it will anyway. We'll have to see. But I really appreciate Luis getting on here and you know, telling it like it is, and it's wonderful to have him. And I appreciate everybody that joined in on the chat tonight. So
Pertinent to that,
please
Ward,
change way.
Michael has a comment about what could other members of the Socorro Electric membership do to help push the board and to help you.
Yeah, attend a board meeting. You have 2 minutes for a public comment at the beginning of the meeting. You're going to leave right afterwards. Write a letter to the editor. You can contact your representatives on some of the issues. So, but we don't. I mean, we haven't had somebody in the public make a public comment in the since I've gotten elected back in April. There's been 5 board meetings. I used to attend them years ago, and I understand it takes a lot of time and effort, but the board needs to hear from the co-op members. And, when I was running for the board and in Walmart parking lot, handing out flyers, asking people to vote for me, that's how you learn about the concerns of the co-op members. And some of those concerns are pretty hard to address, and others I think we can change to better address their concerns. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Get involved. What Luis said.
Show up, make some noise.
They had a very involved co-op. Yeah, they have a very involved co-op community up there in the house, and most co-ops do not.
Great.
So yeah, if you want to contact me, I'm at wardmccartney@gmail.com. WARDMCCARTNEY@gmail.com, all lowercase.
Thanks, Ward.
Yep.
Was there someone else who wanted to make a comment?
The other way you could get a hold of people on the panel tonight would be just simply address your email to info@350 New Mexico spelled out .org, and that will, we can direct it to the correct person.
And yes, this meeting is being recorded, and it'll take us several days, but we will end up creating a version of this to post on YouTube. And then everybody that signed up as part of that's provided their email address, and we'll send a follow-up notice within the week with the link to the recording, and people can then post it, link to it, put it on the co-op board, wherever you need to do that. So I'll look for that within about a week. All right. Let's see, there's been quite a number of other questions. There was one from Steffi about whether Kit Carson in fact discourages residential solar for your member. Some people have heard that. Is that true? If so, could you explain, Luis?
So Tom, we actually ask them to right size. So instead of, let's say, do the 120%, if they need what they need for daytime is what we allow. One of the primary reasons is because with the lack of storage, we have no place to take that energy, right? We can't put it on the transmission system back towards Tri-State. So we actually have stranded energy, and with no storage, except the storage we have today, we really don't have any place to take it. I liken it to a 5-gallon bucket of water that's completely full, and you want to keep putting water in it, it's just going to overflow. If you recall earlier in my discussion, I'm a big advocate if we get community storage and put them in neighborhoods, then we could allow them to put whatever facilities they wanted to build, and then we could store the energy and then release it at nighttime when the co-op needs it. So we're in an interim phase. I think what happened is people just didn't believe we could pull this off. And now that we have, if we get Taos Pueblo and we get Amalia, we'll be at 120% of daytime. And every time you add a rooftop that puts power into the system, we're struggling. Where do you put that energy? And so that's why we're trying to build this DSO model. That's where we're trying to get more storage, is so that we can accommodate a new business model, including putting as much solar as you want on your home, because the excess we can store in a battery, and then Kit Carson can release it when it needs to use it, not when you produce it. So again, there have been some growing pains. This has not been a perfect. This has had a lot of bumpy. This is like driving on New Mexico highway. There's a lot of potholes there, and we've hit some of them. But I think, to the board's credit and to the members' credit, we basically step back, retool, and try to find a solution. We had a year-long meeting with developers to try to find a way. We met probably once a month to talk about these issues. So we didn't shy away from the issue, but at the end, we just couldn't find a resolution that was agreeable to everybody.
That's great. I am looking through, I think we've hit most of the key questions. So let me just ask, as we get close to wrapping up, if anybody on the still online has a question that they want to ask that maybe they haven't typed into the chat or would just like to verbalize, just go ahead and raise your hand using the hand raising tool, and we can just recognize you as a closing, and then we'll thank Louis and wrap it up for this evening. Anybody want to raise their hand? Going once. Oh, Steffi?
Tom, this is
selling energy to out of state, exporting to California. Is that on the table at some point?
Yes, thanks for that question. Yeah, we are. Again, as I mentioned, we have some consultants. We're registering our assets. We are going to participate in the Cal ISO energy imbalance market. And so as soon as we get all the registrations done and finalize some of the technical issues, part of how we are going to maintain our rates is that excess that we've been talking about is sell to the market when the prices are high. All that money will come back to the members to stabilize our rates. So again, we're in the middle of that, and we have a great team of consultants actually from Albuquerque working on that program for us. And I think we'd probably be ready by the first of the year, hopefully, to participate in the energy markets out of state, specifically California. With the news, PNM may be a good market if they run out of power this coming summer. And so, we'll be in a good position to help our friends in Albuquerque.
Great. Barbara Chatterjee has a question.
Just say we put together some.
Barbara? If not, we'll go to Ward.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in Santa Fe, so I'm on PNM, and actually I have solar on my roof as well. And all those issues that Luis has laid out for us are really, it's really important to hear that those things stated. And I'm really concerned about how to get this information more to the general public so that people can understand what the choices are that we're facing and the limitations as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things as we think through that, maybe we do develop kind of a talking point or a list of facts, or like a fact sheet that we can put out jointly. I think the 350 is a good organization to put that information. I think that's what hurts a lot of the programs. Even some of the questions we get is just the misinformation people put out to try to trip up at least our journey. So I think that's key, is putting out the proper information so people at least have the facts before they make a decision.
Okay,
I-
great. Ward, go ahead.
I wanted to add that we have some talking points, and they will be posted on our website shortly, if not already. So yeah, you may check those out, and I hope Luis looks at them and makes, some comments and improvements to them, or other, ideas to put in there too, because it's a start.
Or we certainly would help. I think what we're trying to do is, and for those left, we're trying to create a model. And the parts of the model that in your case, Socorro Electric can use, we want to help there. I mean, it may not be a full buyout, but certainly 5% is not acceptable anymore in today's world. And going incrementally from 5 to 10, I think those are maybe the baby steps some co-ops need to take to get comfortable. But I do think they need to take them, because in today's world, when we started our first solar project, 2005, it was considered hippie power, right? People that live in the north, and we had and you weren't cool. Now, if you're not doing solar, you're not cool. I mean, it's the wave of the future, and I think I would just offer you that I think you're on the right track. I think Socorro's in a great position to move forward, with the city, with the college, to do incremental projects. Maybe not go the 100% that Kit Carson did, but incrementally, 5 and 15%, let everyone catch their breath and then move on. And that's how I think you gain momentum, is you prove that concept will work. So that I'm a believer in that. And that's one reason we're kind of an island, is because I'll tell my good friends in the co-op world what I think, and sometimes they don't like what I have to say. But that's okay. We're here for the members, and they're the only to me, they're the only ones that really count, is our members.
Great. Let's see, Athena, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you. Luis, I commend Taos and you for doing all that you have. My question is, there's wonderful wind resources in the eastern part of New Mexico. Have you considered taking advantage of them as well?
We have, and I mentioned earlier that Guzman and Kit Carson are relooking at their contract now, because historically they go and look for wind, look for the resources. We're restructuring it so that we can do that. We have a couple of projects, so we don't want to breach the contract, but I think that's the beauty of our arrangement. Is Guzman will always manage our load, right? They'll always dispatch, they'll always be part of the equation, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to do every detail. So if we're in a better position to go do Clayton or go somewhere in the east, find transmission and get wind that's 2 cents, we're going to do that. And so that's in our plan. We're looking at wind resources. We're looking at the transmission system. I think in New Mexico, at least in northern New Mexico, the transmission system has to be kind of beefed up, which, some people don't like that because they don't like power lines in their backyard. But if we're really going to address climate change and get lower prices, all of us New Mexicans are going to have to compromise somehow, whether it's having some poles close by so we can get cheap power. We have to get out of this NIMBY thought process if we really want to hit our 2030 goals and kind of do what we can for this climate action. Everything I read and people I talk to, if we don't do something, more dire consequences are going to happen in the future. But we're talking to some wind developers now. We're looking at building our own transmission to be able to import that. Again, our goal is to be 100% renewable by 2030. So we're going to have to kind of use all of the above approach to hit those goals.
Susan had a question about how is a co-op different from community solar?
Well, the co-op, in essence, the community solar is like a program where you carve out an array and 30% in this state is for low income and the other 70% you sell and it's cheaper. I think in today's world, the co-op model is the best model to serve a community in which it's a democratic process. You have elected officials. There's not a profit kind of agenda. So I think they're completely two different, but I think the co-op model is the best model to advance these things we've talked about, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's broadband, any kind of local services, because we basically don't have the buying power of an Albuquerque. So, and I think the democratic control. Your members vote, and if you as a board member aren't doing your job, they can vote you out, or they can make a lot of noise to make sure you hear what they want. And I'm a big believer that the co-op model is the best utility model around.
Great, thank you. Steffi has a question, and then maybe we can have some closing words. If Jim is still here, he can bring us home. Steffi.
It's not really a question, but I don't know if just to clarify a few things, I don't know if people understand that the co-ops, the rural electric co-ops were started, during the Depression, I think, to as a way of getting electricity to people who lived, where it just wasn't economical for companies to come out and provide electricity. So that's what, why they were put together. And unfortunately, in the 70s, a lot of the co-ops had to buy coal plants because the oil embargo, the federal government discouraged them from using oil and gas. So that's why a lot of the co-ops have a big debt to coal. And that's another thing that made Tri-State, which delivers a lot of the electricity to the other co-ops in New Mexico, really kind of burdensome. So that's one thing that this IRA does, is it helps these other co-ops pay off, and utilities. I mean, we have an opportunity here to get rid of all the coal plants in the United States from an economic point of view. So, that's a great thing. And then just responding to another question before about how can we get this out, this is another problem with it being rural in New Mexico. It is very hard to figure out, because there's so many different counties, so many different entities, and there is so much money coming into New Mexico now, with so many different programs, and we do not have the capacity to fully respond to it, to be able to effectively get to all the programs and, to benefit from them. So this really is a problem. And so pushing on your co-op board to really investigate this is a really good thing. As Luis was saying, they really need to get off the duff. But I think Ward was telling me that Tri-State is probably going to be looking at these things too. Tri-State was lobbying for the Inflation Reduction Act. They want, one of the big things, that elements of that is that they get direct payments, which is equivalent to tax credits, which were given only before to for-profit utilities, but now a nonprofit like a co-op can get the same thing. So now it makes it a lot more, Luis was a pioneer, and he wouldn't have had to do all this if, the IRA was here before. So now it makes it a lot more economic to invest in renewable energy now. So, but everything expires in 2031. So we have less, than a decade to get going on this. And if people around New Mexico do not act on this now, we will lose big opportunities in this area. And one other thing, Luis mentioned the 5%, and that's been a cap that Tri-State has put on all of the utility co-ops here in New Mexico, that they can't generate their own power above 5%. So that really discourages any kind of local self-generation. And so that's been a real bad sticking point. And Ward has a great, if you email Ward, he'll tell you he has a great plan for Socorro, and I'm sure the other co-ops too. And it's along the lines that what Luis has done. So that's all I have to say.
Great. Jim, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. This has been a wonderful evening. And thank you, Luis, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I just got a little sense of that. I was very fortunate, and I met Luis when he was just getting started in Taos, and he was I had a business. I was distributed generation business, and he was amazingly welcoming to me and my business model. And not every electrical utility in the state was at all. I also think that as 350, 350 New Mexico was very involved in the passage of the Energy Transition Act. And one of the reasons that act was so successful in opening a path to the future of renewable energy in New Mexico is that we came up with a way to help the utilities, and in this case it was IOUs, the investor-owned utilities, on how to deal with their enormous stranded costs. And maybe the IRA and other legislation is addressing that, because we can villainize the energy generation and transmission co-ops like Tri-State, but they also have a very difficult transition to make, and they haven't necessarily been the smartest about positioning themselves, and so they have enormous as their load shrinks, they have enormous stranded costs that they have to deal with. So anyhow, this has been a wonderful evening. I want to thank 350 New Mexico volunteers for all the amount of time they put in to make this evening successful, and especially Ward McCartney. I want to repeat that you can learn more about what's happened tonight and going forward on our website, which is 350nm.org, or you can get more information by writing directly to us at info@350newmexico spelled out.org. Thank you, Tom, for the help, and look forward. Watch your inbox for next month's speaker series. Good night, everyone.